Hello. We're going to examine in this video the question, is abortion murder? So it's quite a controversial question. Murder is quite controversial and abortion is quite controversial as well, I'd say. But is abortion murder? That's what really matters. I'm going to start off by examining it logically from the pro-abort side. So we're going to look at the logic of why abortion is not murder, and then we'll look at the logic of why abortion is murder, and we'll compare the two. So I've set up four variables, L for legal premise, P for philosophical premise, M for murder. Well, wasn't there a TV series called Darling for Murder? I'm sure there was. I used to prefer Columbo personally. Anyway, finally, A for abortion. Okay, so the pro-abort argument goes that abortion is not murder because abortion is legal. So if something's legal, it can't be murder. Well, on the surface, it sounds like it makes sense, but let's look at it logically. So we're going to use some nice predicate logic. So I'm going to start off with the necessary operator, because we're saying it's a very definitive argument that, abortion is legal, so abortion is not murder, and we're saying it in all worlds, in all possible worlds, it's necessary that abortion is not murder, because it's legal. So we're going to take an extreme standpoint from the pro-abort side, and we're going to use universal quantifier, which means all, and we are going to start off with the property of abortion, and we're going to use a property of alpha legal, which implies that abortion is capital M, not murder. Is that all correct? Yeah, that was good. Okay. So the logic of the pro-abort argument that abortion is not murder because abortion is legal, it goes thus. It is necessary that for all x, where x has the property of abortion and x has the property of being legal, then x is not murder. So is this true or is this false? Well, in order for this argument, for this formula to be true, it would have to be true in all worlds. It would have to be true for all of x, for all abortions. However, this is a list of countries where abortion is illegal, which means that procuring an abortion in any of these countries is a crime. It's murder. So what it means is this logical formula, it's false. And the reason it's false is because it's not necessarily true for all abortions. So it kind of means that some abortions are murder and some abortions are not murder. So how can you reconcile the argument for it to be necessary for all of abortions? Is there, is it murder or is it not murder? So let me just get my head around this. Murder. Yeah, so the way we can solve this is by, if you scrap the legal premise and go with the philosophical premise, because obviously with a legal premise, it's transient and it's subjective, so it will be legal in some countries, it won't be legal in other countries, and in some countries where it's legal it can become illegal, and in some countries where it's illegal it can become legal. So it's not a very good premise to use. Whereas using a philosophical premise, it's pretty universal for every country in the world. It's like, if it's philosophically true that, I don't know, that it's good to feed a hungry person in one country, then it's good in every country. So we need to start with some definitions of a philosophical premise. So we're using the definition of murder. This is the nearest objective philosophical argument I could find that's pretty universal for the philosophical definition of murder, which is the deliberate killing of an innocent person. So in order to prove this definition in regards to abortion, we need to prove that that the thing being killed, i.e. the fetus, the unborn, that they're innocent and that they're a person. So we'll start off looking at what is a human being. So a human being is an individual member of the species Homo sapiens. So is an unborn fetus a human being? Well, it's a member of the species Homo sapiens. It can't be any other species. Two human beings can only produce another human being. I don't think there's any circumstance in any history where two human beings produce anything other than a human being. It's a human being from conception, and so conception is when two human haploid cells fuse to form a diploid human organism, and at that point it's a human being. It's a complete set of DNA. It's a complete individual. So the unborn qualifies as a human being, but do they qualify as a person? So we're going to use again a philosophical definition, which is a human being regarded as an individual. So regarding personhood, that's kind of slightly different. So again, with some countries there's legal definitions. So some countries will say that the unborn is legally a person, they have personhood. Some countries will say that the unborn don't legally have personhood. So we're just going to ascribe to a universal philosophical definition, which is a human being regarded as an individual. So is the unborn fetus an individual? Yeah, it's its own unique DNA, a unique individual, and it's a human being. So we've qualified it as a person, but is it innocent? Well, innocent is I got that wrong. Innocent is not criminally liable according to the presence of actus reus and mens rea. And this applies to most crimes. So actus reus means guilty act, mens rea means guilty mind. So in order to be found guilty of a crime, to be found criminally liable, the prosecution has to prove the presence of actus reus and mens rea. So for example, did a person steal that bicycle, and was that person aware that it was theft? So in regards to the unborn, there is no possible actus reus that can apply to the unborn. There's no possible crime that they could commit, and it's impossible to prove the mens rea because they don't have the ability of speech yet. You can't say it to a fetus in the mother's tummy. You can't say, "Oh, did you pinch that bike?" Well, obviously no, because they can't pinch bikes, and they can't say, "Yeah, I pinched that bike." So they're innocent. It sounds obvious, but for some people you have to be very precise with definitions. Okay, so that's established our philosophical definition. So now we're going to look at this same formula. So I'm going to copy and paste up to here, just to make it a bit quicker. Okay, rather than legal premise, we're going to use philosophical premise. So what the formula we have now is, it's necessary that for all x, where x has the property of abortion and x has the property of the philosophical premise, that abortion is murder under the philosophical premise. It's murder because it's the deliberate killing of an innocent person, which we've established that the unborn are. So this argument is true. So it's false that for all abortions, where abortions is legal, that it's not murder. It's not where abortion has a legal premise that it's not murder, because the legal premise is, again, it depends on which country you're in. And even in that country, abortion can go from legal to illegal and illegal to legal. So it's false. This is not going to be true. It may be true in some countries, but in sort of all these countries, it's false. And we've established that using the philosophical premise of murder, that the argument that abortion, well, it is murder. It's necessary that for all x, where x is abortion and x is a philosophical premise and x is murder. It's doesn't care what country you're in. It's it's irrespective of location and time place. There is another alternative which can kind of reconcile it, but it's one that's not going to be popular with either side. So rather than using very strict necessary for all, we're going to use a slightly different but very similar way of doing this. So we're going to use the possibly operator and some. Paste that there. Okay, and it's going to go. Abortion implies that. Paste that there. X and X. So now this is true. Now this is a kind of a way to reconcile the argument from both sides. If you're pro-abortion or if you're anti-abortion, it's probably the only thing that both will agree on, and it's possibly true that for some x, where x is abortion, that some x is murder, some abortions are murder, and some x it's not murder. And so what we're doing is we're disregarding whether it's a legal premise or philosophical premise, and we're just simply using abortion itself. So again, it's possibly true that for some abortions, abortion is murder and abortion is not murder. And this is true, unfortunately. Some are murder and some aren't murder, and again, that's dependent on where you live, which is not the best way to decide something. So personally, I would prefer to use the middle one, which is just more definitive. We're saying, it is necessarily true that for all abortions, when using a philosophical premise, abortion is murder. So there you go. That's how you prove that abortion is murder. So any questions, reach out to me. You know where to find me on Twitter and YouTube, because I guess you're probably watching this now. So there you go. It's been fun. Okay, bye.